I'd like to welcome everybody out to the July the 11th, 2022 council meeting. We'll be going into closed session pursuant to 143-318-11A3 to consult with the town attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the council, which privilege is hereby acknowledged. Also, pursuant to 143-318-11A5 to instruct the public body staff concerning the position to be taken on or behalf by the public body in negotiating the price or other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease, and also pursuant to 143-318-11A6 to discuss a personnel matter. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
sir. I'd like to welcome everybody back. Do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome you all out to the July the 11th meeting tonight. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest in regards to any item on the agenda? If so, please state at this time. Mr. Borman?
No.
Mr. Nern?
No.
Mr. Phillips?
No, sir.
Mr. Corbett?
No.
Mr. Hargrave?
No.
All right. Moving on, amendment and approval of the draft agenda. We need to add the 5/2/22 to our consent agenda, which is the meetings from that minute. Does any member of council have anything else that needs to be added to the draft agenda?
No.
No one? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the draft agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on, action, discussion resulting from closed session. Attorney Richardson, go ahead, please, sir.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, the only matter that I need for you to resolve and make a decision on coming out of closed session is whether to enter into the settlement agreement and mutual release of all claims with Dennis R. Delahanty as executor of the estate of Ann Morales, which includes a deed of easement from Mr. Delahanty in his capacity as the executor for Ms. Morales' estate to the town of Sunset Beach for purposes of an emergency access easement along Lot 1 as set forth in the document. So if council is so inclined, I would need a motion to accept and enter into the settlement agreement and mutual release of all claims and to accept the deed of easement from Mr. Delahanty.
What's the pleasure of council in regards to this matter? Does anyone have a motion?
I'll make the motion, we accept.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion regarding this matter?
Now, will this be a public access way or just closed emergency only?
It is not a public access way. It will only be for emergency access purposes for the town employees and town staff to utilize essentially as it has been utilized for many years for emergency purposes and sanitation only as set out in the agreement.
So will there be gates or controls or something to make that happen?
There will be gates on each end, which are also part of the approved process that are locked. And there will be signs directing and notifying the public that they cannot use that access way.
Anyone have any more?
No.
Not? All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Richardson, if you need to go, you're welcome to. I don't think we have anything else for you tonight, so you're dismissed. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brady.
All right, moving on next to our general council discussions. Any member of council have anything?
Mr. Mayor, I have a
Go ahead, Mr.
short
Hargrave.
statement to make. Recently, as most of you know, our town, our staff, our mayor, our town council began to look at the future of parking on the beach, parking on Sunset Beach. A key component of this assessment was to seek input from citizens and from the community, get feedback on what you think regarding the possibilities of parking on the island, changing it, not changing it, whatever. The town held, as most of you know, 6 days of open house at Town Hall, where written and verbal input was accepted. Emails were sent to the town website. Emails were sent to the town administrator, the mayor, and the council members, and oral comments were received at a recent town council meeting. Altogether, and this is important, altogether we were given over 460 emails, letters, notes, and personal comments regarding beach parking. And we want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who took the time to express their concerns, their worries, their hopes, and everything to us. And it was very important to do, and a lot of people responded, and it was excellent to see the response. Recently now, moving on, recently, we took the time to read and compile all of the feedback we received, all of it. We then arranged all the feedback into topics associated with beach parking and also prepare discussion questions to support and stimulate future discussion. Tonight, we will pass out to the town council, and the town council and the mayor have in front of them right now a document called Summary of the Community Feedback Regarding Beach Parking. Later in tonight's agenda, we'll move to hold a meeting on beach parking, which will take place on September 20th. September 20th, right in these chambers at that town council meeting. The agenda packet for that meeting will contain this information I'm passing out tonight. We're giving it to the town council early now so that they can study the issue and work on it. But for that meeting, when the agenda packet comes out, this document will be a part of it, so everybody will be able to see the feedback that we received. So again, we want to thank the public for their feedback and thank them for, as we move forward, all the ideas and thoughts that they gave us. John, do you have any comments?
Just quickly, at the end of that packet is a 2-page section called a parking discussion outline. And this is to assist us in starting to have the discussion both about managing parking and paid parking. And it identifies a number of things, a number of steps that we're going to have to consider and work with as we move forward to address this. So this is your homework reading assignment between now and the 20th.
I should have said that.
You should
So
have.
the session on the 20th will be for council discussion or to agree to something?
Council discussion.
Council discussion.
Yes.
Okay?
Do you have anything else, Mr. Borman?
No, that's it, thanks.
Do you have anything, Mr. Phillips?
No, sir.
Anything else from you, Mr. Corbett?
No.
Good?
No.
Good. All right. Moving on next will be our presentation for the dredging project update. Mr. Sam Morrison, you have the floor and the mic, sir.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, council members. As always, thanks for having us come here to update you on the dredging program that we've entered into. What I'd like to do tonight is go through and give you a project update. Next slide, please. On phase 2 of the dredging program. Basically, phase 2 encompasses 2 separate permits that we've applied for. And that is 132-18, which is Marys and Turtles Creek, and then also what we call the Bay Area and Feeder Canal or Channel System, which is 79-19. As you all were aware, the last update I gave that we wouldn't be able to put in a new permit modification for this phase 2 until we received the modification for the 79-19 permit, which was the bifurcation of the Bay Area Channel. That was actually submitted in August of last year, 21. If you recall, we had some delays in getting that permit because of the Corps of Engineers put a moratorium on issuing 401 water quality certifications. That moratorium was lifted. We finally received that permit on May 6th, 2022. Also, in the interim, we applied for both an increase and an extension to the North Carolina DEQ shallow draft navigation grant that the town had received. And on May 6th as well, we received approval for the grant increase to $6,500,000 with an extended expiration date of 6/30/24. And also last Friday, after a scoping meeting with the agencies, we did submit the permit modification for phase 2 for the allowance of an additional type of equipment to do the project work. Okay, you got the next slide. So again, just quickly how we got here. We had the original project to be done by mechanical dredge. We bid it last year. We received bids. The lowest bid we got was $7.23 million, which was 90% over the town's budget. So we went back to the drawing board and said, what else can we do? What other items can we do? So we came up with the ultimate, what we're planning on trying to put out for the dredging project for this season. Next slide, please. So what the new modification that was submitted on Friday last Friday included an additional option for hydraulic dredge and that methodology to do the Bay Area, Marys and Turtles, and the feeder and finger canals with a hydraulic dredge with placement of material at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers disposal area 310. We framed it as an option, an additional option, not to leave or not to take the mechanical option off the table if we elect to try to go out with dual type of bid or something to that effect, if somebody else might be hungry for the project this year. So it's framed as just an additional option of dredging. The other thing the modification addressed was a modification to the dredging footprint to account for potential shoaling between the time of surveys and the time of the contract, marsh grass, and dock locations. And generally, when I say dock locations, we're talking about any fixed poles so it's either fixed piers or floating piers if they have fixed poles controlling the floating piers. And finally, we wanted to address some unfinished business on last year's project, which is Zone A and Zone B from South Jinks. I have a little picture of it that I'll show later, but anyway, it's along South Jinks Creek and then at the end of Riverside Drive. Next slide, please. Again, as we said, we're going to use a hydraulic dredge. That's what we're proposing, to dredge all channels, and all material will go into disposal area 310, which is highlighted in red. The original project had all material going up to an upland disposal site off Old Georgetown Road. Now we're proposing to place all the material into the disposal island along the AIWW. One of the things that happens is it requires a consent to remove from the Corps of Engineers, a consent to remove material, and it also requires a consent to place the material. And generally, the requirement for the consent to place material happens after the removal is done. The removal will not be complete. So what we've done is divided the area up into two sections where removal and placement can happen at the same time. However, we've been talking to the Corps about it. It's not finalized, but they may require a bond from the town if we haven't completed the removal, to ensure that the removal portion gets complete. That's, I guess, consistent with the amount of material that's going to be placed in there. Also, as part of this methodology, we're going to have to get a pipeline from the feeder and finger canals in the Bay Area, and it's going to go through North Jinks Creek. The proposed pipeline corridor is in the shallow water on the west side of the, I'll call it the creek. And when we cross over the creek, it's going to be at one of the bends where there is deep water. So the pipeline will never be higher than I'll call it the shallowest navigational waters around on the east side of the creek, where the east side is the navigable part of the waterway. Next slide, please. Okay. Again, the use of the disposal area 310, we ran into a little bit of a snag here. The town of Sunset Beach is the underlying property owner of disposal area 310. But back in 2016, 2017, due to some issues of capacity in the Galveston District Corps of Engineers, the Corps of Engineers headquarters out of Washington put out some guidance in February of 2017, and basically said for any non-federal interest, they can only use excessive capacity at the disposal area. Well, the Wilmington District Corps of Engineers legal team has interpreted this to mean that it's excess capacity beyond what they would use for the life of the disposal area. Well, the Corps says because their easement on this land is perpetual, that there is no excess capacity because they don't know how many years in the future they'll dredge. So their workaround, as opposed to using excess capacity, their workaround is to require the non-federal interest to remove 150% of the planned material to be placed in the site. Through talking with them, we negotiated that quantity down to 120%, and even that 20% can be, and that's just to make sure you don't place more than you remove. So the way we're doing it, it's going to be a little bit easier to control that. But any amount that is measured that's placed after you remove that's left over is credited. It's not like it happens every time the island's used. Another option is a land swap of usable land with an equivalent or greater capacity that you're going to use. We've looked at what the town owns right now. Most of it is considered marsh or wetland area. So we don't think that's an option, but we're still going to continue to try to look at that further and pursue that. And just so we know, we received the consent agreement to remove the material on May 6th. This is going to be an expensive endeavor because when they say we have to remove as much, what has to happen, because this is an island, we're going to have to actually take the material and haul it off the island over to Pecan at Seaside, where we had previously permitted an offloading site, and take it to the upland disposal site at Old Georgetown Road in order to create capacity to place the dredge material into the site. Next slide, please. Oh, thanks. Again, as I explained, what we're going to plan on doing is removing the material from the western side of DA 310. The hope is to start sometime this fall. It probably could take anywhere from 9 months to a year to remove all the material. And what we would do is have it, again, move the material to the staging area at Pecan at Seaside. There would be an offloading site we're trying to permit that is along the disposal area that is adjacent to the AIWW, and that would be done with either barges, temporary piles, or some other type of anchored equipment that can allow the material to be loaded into scows or onto trucks and then hauled across the AIWW over to Seaside. Next slide, please. As I said, we had an agency scoping meeting, and just kind of one of the things I mentioned that we did receive the permit modification on May 6th. I just wanted to point out that we requested the scoping meeting on the 22nd, which is April 22nd, which is generally 2 to 3 weeks to get the scoping meeting taken care of. And the agencies did not organize the scoping meeting after numerous calls to try to push them on it till July 1st. And that's why we didn't get the new modification in till last Friday. As I said, the agencies voiced a significant, or I didn't say it, but agencies voiced a significant concern over dredging of Zone A, and recommended it be removed from the request. There was 2 different concerns. One is, I guess, whether or not it was actually part of this modification, or it could be considered, it was part of the original permit, or it could be considered a modification. Another thing that came out of the meeting was that we were required, because of the change in, I'll call it in the template or in the permitted area, I'll call it widths of the channel or whatnot. We were required to notify the riparian or adjacent property owners. So those notifications have completely gone out, I believe. So we're starting to receive those back. I just wanted to make it clear to everybody that we're not changing any of the dredging areas, so to speak. What's happened here is this is to address the change in dredge footprint, is to address some of the issues that happened last year, the shoaling that had happened between the time of the surveys and the time of construction. So if you can imagine, the slopes come out and daylight as you dig the channel, and they daylight at a certain location. The higher the shoaling is, the farther out the slopes come. So we had to change that permitted footprint. And in doing so, the agencies felt like, or DCM felt like, we had to notify the adjacent property owners of this change or this modification to the quote unquote footprint. And just for the public's information, and I think it's in the notifications. All the documents of our new permit requests are located on the town's website under the Phase 2 dredging and the USAC correspondence and permitting information. And I've put on here just the actual website here. So this is kind of a more of again a repeat I just explained, and most of this is used to account for some of the issues we had last year on last year's project, some of the concerns the agencies had with the program, and some modifications or adjustments we had to make through the project. So we wanted to account for that ahead of time, so we didn't have those same issues on this project. And then we also wanted to the alignments also, especially in Marys and Turtles and the finger canals, we had to modify those to make sure we didn't, the equilibration of the slopes or the daylighting of the slopes did not encroach upon the marsh grass, the existing marsh grass. So we had to make some adjustments there as well. Next slide. This will show you, just for everybody to see, where Zone A and Zone B. Zone A is on the north side of the feeder canal. Zone B is on the south side. As I said, the agencies felt like Zone B was part of the original permit modification that was given. Zone A was not. The agencies indicated that if we included Zone A on this project, that it would delay the permitting process. So it would probably jeopardize doing the project this dredging season. And secondly, that, as I said, that it may not even been a modification to this permit since it wasn't originally included. So we decided to take that out. And what we can do in this instance is apply for a permit completely separately just for Zone A, and then put it as a add alternate in the bid process, and hopefully get the bid or the permit for Zone A prior to February or so. It gives us more time to get that permit and still have the dredging contractor on site and do the work if we're able to get it. That's it. And then finally, just the project schedule. What we're hoping for is to get the disposal area removal, DA 310 removal project out in 2 weeks, and then have a bid opening date of August 15th with a dredging bid, a solicitation date by the first week of August, and with a bid date of September 1st. Award dates of August 31st and September 15th. So a quick turnaround on the award. The allowable construction window, we're calling for DA 310 of October 1, 2022 to October 1, 2023. The dredging windows for Marys and Turtles is October 1st through March 31st. And the dredging windows for the feeder and fingers in the Bay Area is from December 1st to March 31st. So we hope to get the notice to proceed out by the end of September, or as soon as possible after we receive the permits. Generally, I will say a permit modification of this magnitude takes 75 to 90 days. So it's 80 days between now and the end of September. So we have some work to do, pressure to put on the agencies to ensure that timeline fits. But we're definitely hopeful still at this point. We've gone through the process. We've been talking to them for months about this. They're aware of it. So hopefully that timeline can stay and we don't run into another situation like we did with the 401 water quality certifications. And we've let them very clearly know that we needed it sooner than that we probably need these by the end of August. So 50 to 60 days is what we're looking for to receive these permits. And that's it. Any questions?
Does any member of council have any questions for Mr.?
Yeah, I have a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Zone A, my understanding is when the original permit was sought, that there wasn't any sand there. And I just wanted to make a point of that so people will know
Correct.
Why there wasn't sand there? It's accreted since the permit was first sought.
Correct. Yes, the entire South Jinks Creek shoal dramatically, I guess, accreted to the or to the west, excuse me. And that's why we even got into Zone B, the situation in Zone B and Zone A. That area was clear and open back when we took the initial surveys and applied for the initial permit in 2018.
Thank you.
Anyone
Sam,
else? Go ahead.
you show the construction window from October 1st to October 1st, 22 to 23. But the dredging window has to be completed by the 31st of March.
That's for DA 310. October to October is for DA that's for the removal of material. And the disposal area is separated by an internal levee, internal dike. So removal can
okay.
happen while dredging's happening, and it will happen after
I got you. Okay.
after as well.
Okay.
I don't see, because of some of the difficulties and probably winter weather, I don't see it being a real productive time of year to remove material.
Okay.
Summer is much better time, so they may schedule it around. And if the Corps allows us, then that'll give us the best opportunity to get the best price from contractors.
Okay. Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm not sure if I really understand all of this stuff.
It's tough. It's tough.
The notifications that just went out to all of the people in the area, it was just mainly telling them that we're switching from mechanical to hydraulic. Number one.
Adding that option.
Adding that as an option. We're not switching it. So the two options are both there. And the second part is that in the Bay Area, you have the bifurcation. So they're coming up that approved splitting it into the north side and the south side of the Bay Area when it widens up. Is that correct?
No, that was approved May 6th.
Okay.
So that modification was already approved,
Okay.
along with the shoring up of Cobia and having the offloading site at Pecan at Seaside.
Okay.
So that was approved May 6th, and the new was switching, and also more the notification to the riparian property owners is more because of the change in footprint of the dredging area. The permitted footprint has gotten wider because we've done this to account for the potential of shoaling happening between now and the time of construction, or between the time of the last surveys that the design was based off of and construction.
So for the most part, people who are going to have dredging near their property, they're going to dredge more, not less. Wider, not narrower.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it shoals in, it won't be necessarily wider. The slopes will have to come out farther.
Okay.
The channel will be the same width. It's just where the slopes come out in daylight.
Okay. And at what point in time are we still going to start having ideas of what this is going to cost the property owners?
Well, I think the big one, John, is August 15th. If we get the bids in by then, if we can make that happen because we're going to put this out in two separate contracts. One will be to prepare disposal and remove the material, and prepare the disposal area where the dredge material is going to be placed. Like I said, we hope to get that bid out. I won't say, I said 2 weeks early, the end of, or 2 weeks from this coming Friday is the hope, and then bid them August 15th. So we'll have a good idea then, because I think the dredging price we have a decent idea of anyway.
That's all I have right now.
I can get anything?
No, I'm okay.
Well, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Sam.
Next up will be our public comments on agenda items only. Do we have anybody that would like to speak on an agenda item at this time? So please come to the microphone, state your name and your address. You have 3 minutes as our time.
My name's James Wilson. My address is 410 29th Street, Sunset Beach. I'm the sole proprietor of Pure Markets. We organized and managed the markets over here in the park for the last several weeks. There's been a big challenge to us to meet the demands of the town for safety and control the parking and traffic. It's been a tough few weeks. With the help of the police department, we've got some education. We've also received direction on where to focus our efforts. And today I'm happy to say that we believe we have a plan that was initiated last week at the weekly market that meets all your requirements. Now, I know you're voting tonight on our future.
We're not, sir.
Oh, well,
No,
that was the
special meeting-
impression.
No, it's not. And I'll let you go ahead and speak because it's really the pure items, the pure market or any of the markets wasn't. The only thing that's up tonight is regards to giving them things on all events, all over town. Nothing singled out any markets tonight. We're not voting on anything.
Okay,
There's
well,
not no stoppage. There's nothing like that.
Okay, well, thank you for
Yes,
letting
sir.
me finish.
Yes, sir.
I misunderstood the notice. But I just want to let you know that we worked real hard on this, and we worked real hard with your police department. They were very, very helpful in getting us where we are today. We've got a good plan out there. We demonstrated that last week, and we will continue that. But we really need to know, especially our 70-some small business owners that work that market, what our future is going to be here in Sunset Beach. We respectfully request, since we've met your requirements, that we be able to continue and finish out our 2022 season and beyond. I know out there real far, it's hard to predict, but I think we've done what we needed to do to be granted permission to finish out at least our 2022 season.
And like I said, there's
Okay.
no kind of vote or anything like that to stop it or continue it, anything. There's nothing to that. And if
Yeah.
anything ever comes up, it would be an agenda item up ahead of time of the meeting.
Okay,
where
well,
you'd be
I
ready.
misunderstood.
It's,
I
it's
thought-
perfectly fine.
Okay.
Hey, I misunderstand a lot of it too.
But I am
that's the
glad I
thing,
made
it's
the
not-
mistake.
It's not there. Nobody's
And I
voting
got
to
this
do
out to
anything,
you,
okay?
to y'all. So, as far as we're concerned, we're moving forward with Thursday's market, and we'll continue every Thursday from here to the end of the year or end of the season. And unless we hear something to the contrary from y'all.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much.
All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else on agenda items? Go ahead, sir. State your name and address, please, sir. I'll try to start the clock right. I apologize on last.
Thank you. That's Bob Forrester, 110 Crooked Gully Circle. Believe it or not, I've only got a couple comments. I don't think I'm going to take a lot of time. I'm addressing the revision of 6.06E4, elimination of setback in certain situations. I realize that no actions can be taken on that tonight, but I suggest that you approach the request to eliminate the setback requirements with caution. To amend the ordinance as requested would result in a design as a matter of right anywhere throughout the MR3 district. I can think of, off the top of my head, 8 existing places where it would also would apply in the MR3 district. If it's to deal with the convention center Jones Bird situation, the separation, as I believe it is, I think there's more appropriate vehicle is a variance, which would only apply to, if it was established, would only apply to one situation and not throughout the MR3 zone district. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, Bob.
Anyone else on agenda items? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Todd Rademacher, Riptide Builders, 279 Clubhouse Road. I'm also speaking to the same agenda item that Mr. Forrester spoke to. I like to speak in support of that item, the importance to it in regard to investment into the community, investment into our local neighborhoods. There are many times when you have multiple businesses. We'll use the example Mr. Forrester used, the convention center and the Jonesburg Clubhouse. There's going to be obvious, it was a unique experience where Sea Trail was all owned by one company, and they were able to have the ability to own both those buildings at the same time. In the current environment we're in, it would be really necessary, really important for two separate entities to be able to own something like that. And I'm sure there's other places like Mr. Forrester talked about where that would also be important. But to operate, manage the convention center independently, invest in that independently, to operate, own, invest in the golf courses and the clubhouses independently and their infrastructure, also important. So I'm speaking to the importance of reviewing that ordinance, moving it forward, and bringing about a hopeful environment where everybody can thrive and survive many years into the future. Thank you very much.
Sir. Anyone else on agenda items? All right. No further. We'll move on. Next up is the consent agenda. We'd added, like I said at the beginning, the May 2nd, 2022 meeting minutes, the June 6th, 2022 special meeting minutes, June 6th first regular meeting minutes, the June 20th, 2022 special meeting minutes, the 11/6/17, 12/3 of 18, 12/18 of 18, closed session minute approvals, unsealed. The Building Inspections Department May 2022 report, Public Works Department May 2022 report, Fire Department May 2022 report, Planning Department May 2022 report, Finance Department May 2022 report, and the Police Department May 2022 report. Does any member of council have anything in regards to any of these minutes? If so, please state. Mr. Corbett, you got anything?
I'd like to ask the fire department to give us a quick assessment of how we held up on 4th of July weekend. It was a really challenging week. The shore beach patrol worked very hard. And
I can answer that for him, Chief. I was there all day on the 4th, through every bit of the storm, and it was very quiet, except for the thunder and lightning.
Did you get wet?
No.
No. Okay.
I didn't prepare a presentation,
you
and
don't need a presentation, but just,
it was
Yeah.
busy.
it was busy.
You look tired.
It's not a quiet little beach town. July 3rd, Sunday, July 3rd was probably one of the busiest days I've seen since I've been here. Deputy Chief Adams, Deputy Chief Childers probably will concur if they were standing here. There was more cabanas, even though we pushed out the zone a little bit. There was more cabanas this year than any busy day last year. Around the pier, all the way to Palm Cove, all the way to 40th, there was a lot of people. We upstaffed just on kind of a gut feeling and hunch by what we've been seeing. We had plenty of personnel, and Beach Patrol did great. The fire department personnel did great. I can't remember. I think I've sent emails to all of you and Miss Anglin about different types of incidents and stuff we responded to, but off the top of my head, I can't remember what day happened when. I don't know. You got any specific questions? It's busy.
Did we have any rescues? There was rip currents were also an issue during the week.
July 3rd, we didn't have, I don't think, any rip
current rescues that day, but it was rough. That whole July 4th weekend was rough. Big storms rolled in July 4th morning, which kept the beach quiet, but we had 2 houses get struck by lightning, some flooding in the area, multiple other calls going on at the same time. Towards the end of last week, July 4th week, we flew red flags on the beach several days. Last weekend, last Friday night, there were several rescues in Tubbs Inlet with people trying to cross between the 2 islands. Saturday night, there were several more. If you watch WWAY tonight, I'll be starring in an episode talking about that.
If we get over early enough.
But the biggest thing is we're doing a lot of public education with flying the different flags corresponding to the Weather Service's rip current warnings. We added big flags at 40th Street, the gazebo, down by 16th on, I think it's 16th, somewhere down there on one of the new walkways. The rip current flags are on the UTVs. We've got life rings on the beach strand. We're passing out all kinds of materials to try to educate people on the hazards of the ocean. There's signs at every public access talking about beach hazards and rip currents and all that sort of thing. So I know how it is to go on vacation and walk by all the warning signs. I've done it. But we encourage people to pay attention to that stuff and the information we're putting out. And I definitely encourage people to not try to swim between the islands.
I think, I would say on behalf of the council, the Beach Patrol, Fire Department, and the Police Department over this last week have done a great job in serving our town and community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Well stated, John.
Any more about the minutes? Anybody got any more questions?
No questions.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion at all? All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is our town administrator report. Ms. Lisa Langland, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I only have 3 things for you all tonight. The recycling applications will be going out by the end of July, so be on the lookout for those so you can sign up for next year's recycling program. If you've noticed the several large tents and numerous vehicles on the private property near the planetarium and are just wondering what those are, the site is being used as a staging area for a filming crew that is filming near Ocean Isle Beach at the go-kart track and the mini golf course that's on 179 near there, and they're just using this area for a staging area. And the only other thing I have is, I'm sure you've seen on the news that we've had several vehicles stolen from our area recently, with the reason being that the vehicles were left unlocked with the keys inside. So we do reiterate to please remove your keys from your vehicles. Don't leave valuables in plain sight, and lock your vehicles.
Were they recovered?
They were recovered.
Anything else for the administrator? No. Not any member of staff that doesn't have anything left in there is welcome to leave. If you want to go home, go ahead.
I thought for a minute y'all just wanted to stay.
All right, next up is our planning board UDO rewrite activity report. Go ahead, Mr. Chad.
Mayor, thank you. Board. On June 16, 2022, the planning board staff met with Wes McKyle with the Cape Fear Council of Governments on the latest installation of the UDO update meeting and with the planning board. The UDO or the planning board was able to work through Article 10, which is landscaping requirements, Article 11, which is sign requirements, Article 12, which is environmental regulations, and start Article 13, which deals with all of our subdivision regulations. We will pick back up next Thursday. I don't know the date off the top of my head. So next Thursday with 13.2 and work our way towards subdivisions. If I'm not mistaken, 13 is the last article we have to deal with, and then 3 appendices dealing with definitions, the mixed use district standards, and plant specifics and requirements. They have also been given their first text draft language that they will be going through as soon as the audit's over. I have ambitions that we will hopefully wrap up the audit in the next 2 meetings, and that would mean starting the language draft and revisions and lookovers in September.
So you're back somewhat on schedule, or?
I mean, we'll be there. We'll get there.
Okay.
Any other members have any questions for Chad?
I just want to say thanks. That's a big elephant to eat.
One bite at a time.
Yep.
Anything else? If
That'll
not,
do it.
thank you, sir. Just stay right there.
Just stay right here.
Old business discussion of temporary and special events ordinances.
Yes.
Go ahead, Chad.
All right. So I want to start off by saying that I've been working with Lisa on this probably for the past month and a half since this has really kind of come up. I want to also let the board know and address y'all that this is just a draft. This is an idea of what this could look like. There will be other additions into this. This has not gone through a 160D look, and I have also not sent this to the Cape Fear Council of Governments, so I plan on working on with this due to them doing the UDO update. So that's also something that I plan on doing. This has also not been sent to the planning board yet, who will also have a first go look at this as well. But the idea is that temporary events exist in the UDO as it states right now. There is language for temporary events. The problem is that you have your general code and your UDO. One talks about special events. The other one talks about temporary events. I'm looking to get rid of the word special event and move it all to temporary events. It's governed in the Unified Development Ordinance. It's laid out in Article 6 of the land use of Article 6 of the table of uses and the uses that can and cannot be in there. In Article 7, you also talk about guidelines for temporary events. So this is a report to task the planning board, administration, and planning staff through a discussion to recommend a modification to the Town of Sunset Beach's Unified Development Ordinance and the Town Code regarding temporary and special events within the Town of Sunset Beach. In the past, events in the park and events on private property have been reviewed by 2 different review procedures. Events in the park have been reviewed by administration staff in accordance with Chapter 97 and 99 of the Town Sunset Beach General Code, while events on private property were reviewed by the UDO administrator in accordance with the Unified Development Ordinance and the rules set forth in Article 7, Performance Standards, Section 7.31, Temporary Events. Temporary and special events were both considered land uses and should be governed by the UDO. Planning staff has worked with the town administrator, Lisa Anglin, to come up with a plan of text to draft and merge and modify chapters 97, 99 of the town's general code to Article 7, Section 7.31 of the town's UDO. As Article 7, Section 7.31 currently written, the UDO lays out an application submittal, review, and permitting process. The criteria on how each temporary event is reviewed is also found in Section 7.31 of the UDO. Each temporary event must beat each standard before permit shall be granted by the UDO administrator. The direction that staff is seeking from the town council is to give planning staff permission to submit a text amendment and merge special events into temporary events, language from Chapter 97 and 99 of the Town Code into Article 7, 7.7, Section 7.31 to the UDO. While doing this, staff will present a draft of language to the planning board that balances temporary events out and uses temporary events and uses that to achieve what's best for the citizens of Sunset Beach and the town of Sunset Beach. So you've been given a draft language of what this could potentially look like, or attachment to Chapter 97, what the town code would look like after all this, 99, which it deals with rules in the park, and then we actually have an existing temporary use application. Does anybody have any questions on this so far?
So, Chad, the bottom line here, which you're going to take, and we're going to take the 3 ordinances in one policy, which is all over the place, and we're going to bring them into one policy on temporary events
Correct.
and one policy on parades.
Essentially, that's what's going to be left over, yes. Because parades are not really viewed as a land use thing.
That's right.
It's a street
Right.
thing.
And that will be under what?
That will stay under the general code. My understanding with talking with the town administrator, Lisa Anglin, that will stay under the purview of potentially Dustin Graham, but also work firmly with the police department and fire department as it comes with those type of entities. The one thing you will not find in this yet is I have a plan when we deal with projects that goes to the planning board. We use what we call a TRC process, which brings in staff along with the applicant in front of them to address certain things that the applicant has submitted for each project. The reason why I haven't included that yet, because I've got to make sure, according to 160D, that the TRC process and the TRC can look at more than just cases, but also interject this into some type of review process that not just reviews with planning staff, but also keeps police, fire, and finance and all those departments within the town that can make this function pretty smoothly.
TRC is technical review process?
Correct.
Okay. And that's beyond the planning board. That's the town staff, departments.
Correct. So before a project or a temporary event, so to speak, would go before get a final review, the applicant of the special event would sit down with all members of the department heads that have want a say so in this. More importantly, the planning staff, the fire department, and the police, and also Ms. Anglin. But it also lets the whole entire staff know what's being submitted and what's going on in the town as well, and keeps everybody informed. But it also allows the applicant direct access to department heads on things. Hey, this is what we're going to require, and leave it up to the applicant to come back and say, hey, this is how we're going to address your comments toward us.
Just, I hope you keep in mind as you go through this, make it as user-friendly as you can, so that I come for a temporary event, I can understand what you're doing, understand what I've got to do, understand what I've got to go through, and it's very user-friendly. That's the thing that I think it's very important.
And that's the goal I've kind of, as we've gone through the UDO rewrite, is to make this keep as user-friendly as possible instead of user-restrictive.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
And make it enforceable.
Yes,
because there's nothing more difficult than trying to enforce something that you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Chad?
Yes, sir.
So is this going to change the requirements for these events, or just going to consolidate what's already there?
It's going to make, honestly, it's going to enforce what's already pretty much there and enhance it, such as parking, such as written permission from property owners to say, hey, you have permission to park here, you don't have permission to park here. Demonstrating where parking exists and where in the head-in parking on right-of-ways that the council approved, I think at the June meeting or the May meeting, is going to help that.
Angled.
Yeah, that's what did I say?
You said head in.
Head in, yeah. Angled parking in the right-of-ways is going to help that. I think that was approved in June.
So if I could, Chad.
Yes.
It will take all the pieces that the town needs to be able to approve an event or a temporary use into one cohesive application package that will be well spelled out. So when the applicant comes in, he'll have, or she will have, every single piece of that has been outlined in that application, depending on what type of event they're trying to organize. Mm-hmm. Then once Chad has reviewed the application package and deemed it complete, then a meeting will be set up between the applicant and the TRC, which, as Chad said, is all of the department heads and myself, where each one of us would get the application package in advance be able to review it and bring our comments to the applicant of how they will need to, things they will need to do to be able to execute their event effectively and safely.
The other thing I want to emphasize on is, and I know there's been a lot of comments on this, is to put in writing where these events can be allowed more so. Again, that goes back to where you had 2 review processes. If they were to go through the temporary events as we have it right now, only have one avenue for this, and that is 7 consecutive days or 2 consecutive weekends for temporary event. I am adding language that will, for annual events, not more than 26 days in a calendar year. With annual events not more than 26 days in a calendar year held on a weekly basis. So ultimately, you would create temporary markets to exist once a week, up to 26 times a year, to allow as well. Yes, sir. Correct. Correct.
Is to give town staff the approval. All we're looking to do tonight is to give town staff the approval to rectify some conflicting language within our documents so that going forward, we'll be able to be consistent. That's all we're looking to do this evening.
Correct.
Correct.
So I think strongly that this needs to be done because these conflicting documents are causing problems. And I'd like to make a motion that we give the town staff the ability to look into this and perform as described in the recommendation.
I just wanted to put that on the record to make sure everybody knew that we're not limiting these things in our town and finding a balance.
With a motion on the floor, do I have a second? All right. Now, any more discussion?
One quick, would this also apply, all the way across the board? You said all kinds of events, like large-scale weddings?
Yes.
Yes.
So
The filming crew staging area would come through this process. Weddings, the park, a private lot, the
Sunset
bird
at
launch.
sunset.
Yeah, sunset at sunset.
Earth Day,
will
Arbor
operate
Day.
under this Earth Day, Arbor Day.
Okay,
Well,
so we're
yeah.
going to have a standard package here that anything that we do inside the town, public property and private property, has a set
We'll
of
have
rules.
one set of rules.
One set of rules that
in
applies
one
to-
place
Okay.
that apply to all of it. That's the goal.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
No more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Chad. Just stay right there, sir. Next up's our new business, consideration of Earth and Arbor Day annual town event. Go ahead, Mr. Chad.
Also before you tonight is a consideration for Earth Day and Arbor Day to be an annual town event. The council and staff will discuss Earth Day and Arbor Day becoming an annual town event organized by the town staff and the ERC. If approved, the group will develop and present a proposed budget to the council during the upcoming meeting. I think Lisa and I talked about that being August, especially with Sunset at Sunset coming up. And the reason why this is coming up tonight is that in talking with the ERC and members at the last meeting, we realized that when we approved a $2,500 budget for Earth Day, Arbor Day, that's all well and good, but it also allowed them to use money for Sunset at Sunset to be able to demonstrate stuff as that as well, such as ordering recycling bags to hand out and do stuff like that. The problem with that is that we did not realize that I did not realize that when June goes to July, we start a new budget year. So ultimately, I'll be coming back along with the ERC in August to present that budget to you and then move it into a planning budget line item in the future. That way we can plan this from Sunset at Sunset to Arbor Day and not Arbor Day to Sunset at Sunset with that planning budget rollover in the middle.
We're basically asking you to consider making this an annual event so that the ERC can budget for it and Tara can bring that into the annual budget. That will just automatically come before you each year instead of them having to come and ask for it individually.
And we basically need this for the Tree City designation that Raymond Ford.
Yes, we do.
Right?
Yes.
We don't have to set a date now, or
No.
Are there dates associated with this, or just
Well, the
Arbor Day
date
comes
is
up?
normally April 22nd,
Mhm.
right? But if that falls on a Saturday or Sunday, the ERC would like the ability to make it like that Friday or the Monday. So we don't want to call out the April 22nd date.
Yeah.
Sounds
All right, so what's the pleasure?
I
for-
have a motion.
Go ahead.
I move that we approve the Earth and Arbor Day event becoming an annual town event organized by the town staff and the ERC.
Do I have a second?
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead. Chad up next. Be for our UDO amendment, MR3 zoning district, Article 606E4.
Correct.
Go ahead, sir.
This is to schedule a public hearing for the August meeting for Riptide Builders has submitted a text amendment to amend Article 6, Mainland Multifamily Residential District, Section 6.06C. Planning staff has had multiple meetings and conversations with Riptide Builders, community planner, public relations staff member Todd Rademacher on a text amendment that would allow a zero lot line provision for existing non-residential structures, abutting non. So you turn to page 68 of your packet. You'll see the proposed language that was recommended approval by the planning board in June, and it would change section 6.06C, subsection 4, existing non-residential structure setbacks. A, no setback is required where adjacent to existing non-residential structures or non-residential zoning district, and B, where abutting a street, lot line, 1 to 2 family dwelling, multifamily dwelling, or vacant residential zoned lot, the side setback shall be 12 feet. So that is the scheduling of this public hearing to change the text is being before you tonight for August. I'm here to answer any questions. The applicant is also here to answer any questions that you might have as well.
Chad, on that page that you just talked about, C says reserved, C1 says reserved. What does that mean? For anything in the future?
So if you want another app.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Chad,
Yes, sir.
so that same page talks about non-residential structures, and I understand that this is supposed to be directed only towards non-residential structures.
Existing non-residential structures. Yes, sir.
But the diagrams here say multifamily project,
Mm-hmm.
single-family dwelling.
The diagrams were not updated, just the language.
So the
So the diagrams here have nothing to do with what we're trying to do here?
Correct.
You could have put a big X on them.
You know how long I stared at those diagrams? Yeah.
They're appropriate.
So-
they just don't reflect the text change.
So can you
apologies for-
explain, please, what are we trying to do here? I mean, you've got, sorry, speaking too much into the mic there. Mr. Forrester indicated a property with a convention center and the Burr Jones clubhouses that's there.
Okay.
But of this is existing property, and it seems clear from that by doing this division, we would permit the clubhouses, the clubhouse to be affiliated with the golf properties and stay with the present owner, and that a different owner would have the convention center, and be able to use that to develop in a different manner.
So
So is this just limited to that particular property in Sea Trail, or does this have implications for the rest of MR3?
So answer the third question of that. It's for the whole entire MR3 zoning district.
Okay, so
Correct.
do we have, Mr. Forrester said he could think of about 8 different properties that could be doing the same thing.
So let me answer your first question, and then we'll try to get into
Yeah.
part B of that.
Yeah.
So For example, the Jonesburg Clubhouse and the Convention Center.
Yeah.
You have a huge tract of land.
Right.
You can subdivide the land. It would meet if the land is subdivided. That's how you have to look at part of this. You have to look at the land underneath it being subdivided. So if XYO owner of the property wanted to come and subdivide a piece of property, they have that right to do that, whether it's state exemption or going before the planning board and seeking a minor or major subdivision. The problem becomes is that if you have an existing structure on it, you cannot create a nonconformity when you divide that structure, when you divide that piece of land.
So if the buildings are adjacent, they don't have setbacks.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you divide it, as I could not allow a subdivision of that property, for example, because you would be then creating a nonconformity of adjoining building, because then the lot line in the middle of that building would not meet the setbacks required in the MR3 zoning district. Mm-hmm. So Todd Rademacher, representative for Riptide Builders, has submitted an application for this. So when you subdivide a parcel, there's an existing building on it, whether it be the Clubhouse Convention Center or other buildings with it that are existing non-residential uses inside the whole entire MR3 zoning district. You could divide them and create now a nonconformity, but ultimately this text would not deem the building a non-conforming use. It would be legal. So for example, John Corbett comes into me and say, I want to subdivide my property into 2 lots. I want to build potentially a single family structure over here and a single family structure over here. I know this is not non-residential, but this is going to help paint a picture. If you have a structure, when you go to subdivide that would not meet setback requirements, I could not sign anything to go be recorded to ultimately be subdivided on that property, because you cannot create nonconformities when you divide land. Does that make any kind of sense, or did I?
Unless I go for a variance.
Unless you go for a variance, or unless you move the structures. Now,
so you're talking about here, though, existing structures that are non-residential.
Correct.
So that, my question is, besides the convention center and the clubhouses,
mm-hmm.
are there additional properties that Riptide could be applying this to, or other developers could be developing to? I mean, and is that?
I would have to have the applicant really kind of deem that, defer that question kind of over to him.
Let me ask one question before you go there. This looks to me like this would take effect in the whole town.
Not the whole town, just the MR3 zone.
In any MR3 in the town.
Correct.
So maybe Riptide should ask for a variance for just those 2 buildings. I'm not comfortable thinking about this to cover all of MR3.
So the thing is, again, just like the previous items, we're not making a decision on this evening. This is just allowing a public hearing to get public input on it.
Yeah.
So we're not choosing one way or the other. And as we've done on some of these other things, when you get into this, there's very strong feelings on one side or the other, such as parking, that I think having the public input makes has an influence, and it should.
Yeah.
So considering what I'm hearing with this, whether or not I'd be for it or against down the road, we should have the public hearing to get the feedback. We're just getting this evening, so versus shutting it down, will give us some time to think about it and ask questions prior to this hearing, and I think we should move forward with it.
I'm not arguing against moving forward. I'm just trying to understand what it is where we're moving forward.
Go ahead, Todd.
Now, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but.
And I completely understand. Okay. Yeah. So I completely understand what the questions you guys are asking. And one of the things you asked about a variance, and Chad and I did discuss that. He mentioned that we had had several meetings about this text amendment and moving forward and things of that nature. One of the reasons that we said, hey, a variance seems kind of odd is because variances, as we all know through the general statutes, are meant to be minor, small, minute kind of adjustments to the ordinance and in hardship situations. To get a variance here, you're looking for now with the 10% setback for the MR3 zoning district, you're talking about, what did we come up with, Chad? Maybe like a 30-foot variance. It was a pretty massive variance when you took the lot frontage into consideration if you were to do some type of subdivision. We're certainly, as you guys research this this text amendment, open to whatever alternatives that would work to move forward with some type of ability to ensure that the future potential of the convention center, for example, can be unlocked and utilized for the town to enjoy, for the tax base to thrive, that kind of thing, moving forward. Our goal certainly is to take an old building like that and renovate it, move it forward, make it pretty like our office, and, make sure that it stays an asset to Sunset Beach moving down the road. In regards to the other existing buildings within Sea Trail or the MR3 district, I'm not aware of any that really lend themselves to subdivision, either based on lot size or the building configuration itself is such that it doesn't lend itself because of firewalls or separations, that you just can't do that with other clubhouses. The Maples Clubhouse, you certainly couldn't do that. You couldn't re-subdivide the Jones Bird. Our office certainly wouldn't lend itself to anything like that. And off the top of my head, certainly, I wouldn't think that any of the other commercial buildings located within the MR3, Sandpiper Bay's got a clubhouse and restaurant. Oyster Bay may or may not be zoned MR3. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
It's not.
It's not. Well, there you go. But we're talking about some unique structures inside a Sea Trail mainly, that you certainly don't have competition anywhere else in Sunset Beach. They're just kind of different, so to speak.
It would be good to see something innovative being done with the convention center and that whole area for everybody's benefit.
That is certainly the end-all, be-all goal for everybody, I believe.
Thank you. From me.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
fine.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion. Do we schedule a public hearing for August 1st, 2022 at 7 p.m. to consider the UDO amendments for MR3 zoning district articles 6.06?
We're gonna have to readdress that.
We
We're gonna have to readdress that.
For the-
Just
how
say
about
for the
for the
August
next-
meeting?
for the next meeting.
August meeting,
For the August meeting.
without a date. August meeting.
You'll find out why in a moment.
Yeah. That's your motion. Okay. Do I have a second
Second.
that this will be changed to the August meeting for a public hearing?
Second.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a great night.
All right. Now, next up, Chad, you can go home. Next up is our August the 1st, 2022 Town Council meeting discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Corbett, go ahead with this one.
For a variety of reasons, both personal and others, I'd like to recommend that we move the meeting later into the month, looking at August 10th, the 9 a.m. as a optimal time to do this.
Be moving us to a week later on a Tuesday morning, the 10th, or is that a Wednesday morning?
Wednesday the 10th.
Be the Wednesday morning, the 10th. What's the pleasure of council in regards to this?
I agree. with
That's
that.
fine.
So you making a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move it to the 10th.
All right, do I have a second?
Check with Jamie there.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that meeting will be moved to the 10th, and that public hearing will be on the 10th. Go ahead, Terry.
In regards to that meeting, can we kind of put it underneath that, talking about that meeting? So during that meeting, we have to set a public hearing for installment financing, for the potential property purchase that we had talked about previously. So in order to move forward with the purchase of the property minus any potential grants, we have to have a public hearing that night.
That
For
same,
the
that night or
installment
that morning?
financing.
That morning.
Oh, that morning.
That
Sorry,
morning.
I misspoke. Because
So
we
in
have to
regards
have
to
the
that-
application into the LGC by the 19th of
Yeah.
that month.
So we'd be putting that on for that same day.
Yes.
Okay.
I just need a motion to call for a public
Do I have a
hearing that
motion to
day.
call for a public hearing in regards to the finance issue?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Thank
you.
Terry.
Sorry, Tara.
Oh, that was
Problem. Next up
And
will
just
be our.
so, Mayor,
Go
can I
ahead.
interject one thing? And just so everybody knows, this is not a special called meeting just for these two public hearings. That will be your August regular meeting. So your minutes, your department head reports, and anything else that would normally be on that August agenda will be on that agenda in addition to
Just a
these
regular
two.
meeting.
Right,
like
just a
we
regular
have the
meeting with
Once a
the,
month meetings like.
right, because you're required to have one regular
Yes.
meeting a month.
All right. Moving on to our fee schedule amendment, parking ticket fines. Mr. Corbett, you've got some questions on this. You want to bring this out?
I think as we've been reviewing parking and parking tickets over the course of the last couple of months or so, it seems to us that our fine of $25 is not really sufficient to provide a deterrent for parking violations. And so I'm recommending that we raise the ticket to $50, primarily as to increase the deterrent, so that if it's paid within 72 hours, it would be $50. If paid after $72, it would be, after 72 hours, it would be $75. And it would be $100 if it's paid after 7 days, which is what currently exists at the time there.
What's the pleasure in regards to this of the council?
Was that a motion?
No, that was just an explanation.
That was
of what
just
he
an
brought up.
explanation.
Long motion.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we change the fee to paid within 72 hours, $50, after 72 hours, $75. I think it's a good move.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, next up is to schedule a special meeting for September the 20th, 22. This one here.
Now, will this be a special
I didn't-
meeting or would this be the September meeting?
This,
Mayor, just like with
this
the
will
August
be-
meeting,
yeah,
this will just be the
this
regular
will be the
meeting for
meeting
September.
record.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking to cancel, I think it's the 6th, Lisa, is that correct? Canceling the 6th, moving it to the 22nd, and this is in regards to,
The 20th.
to the 20th, I apologize.
Yeah.
To the 20th, so changing the September 1st meeting, or the September the 6th, first meeting of the month to September the 20th would be a morning meeting. Is that on a Tuesday or is that a Wednesday? What day is that on?
That is a Tuesday.
That is a Tuesday. All right, would be
And the
moving.
initial change, just so everybody in the public hears it, is that Mr. Chad Kimes, who's with the Department of Transportation, requested a meeting with the council, a daytime meeting, preferably with regards to the Calabash River Bridge Replacement Project. So that will be on that agenda for everyone to come and hear what DOT is planning.
All right.
Will we be able to ask him other NCDOT questions?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
We
Thank you.
will.
What's the pleasure of council in regards to this?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to a disposition of directives. All right, so the next meeting will be on the 8/10, and then the following, and that will be a public hearing. Two different ones, correct?
Yes, two
All
public.
right. One is for finance, and the other one's in regards to these rules.
MR3 zone.
All right, and then the next one, the meeting will be changed. Well, actually, it's already down from 9:20, but we'll be disregarding the 9/6 meeting, so the 20th. All right, anything else? Anyone have anything else that needs to be brought up?
Not at this time.
All right. All right, if that's so, let's move on. We got public comments. Anybody have any public comments at the end? If you do, please come up. Please state your name and your address. You know what I'm talking about, and I'll put you 3 minutes on. Yes, ma'am, go
Bobby
ahead.
Leonard at 108 Discovery Lake Drive.
Yes, ma'am.
Last month I was in and explained the correction of the accident that took my husband's life on March 2nd, 2019. Today, the suit was filed in the court. So I feel like I have to get this off my chest and share with you what I know. My husband was riding where he belonged. He was hit from behind when he was killed. Tasker was the only person saying the bicyclist turned in front of his car. He had dementia. The eyewitness said the bicyclist was riding on the white line, yet Sunset Beach police chose to take Tasker's word over Mr. Taylor's. Mr. Taylor brought my husband back to life on the street after cardiac arrest. Mr. Taylor had all his faculties. Immediately following the accident, Tasker transferred his house to his daughter and moved to Arizona, where he did not register to vote or to drive. Tasker was not able to be deposed due to his health and is now residing in the Carolina with Alzheimer's. I learned the evening of the accident, Tasker had some acquaintance with one or both of the officers at the scene. I'm sharing this information because I wanted to talk with Grady. He refused. I wanted to explain to him what this is going to do to our family. It's on the internet forever. When my great-grandchildren, my great-great-great-grandchildren do a family history, this is there. And it's worded wrong. I was not pulling in front of anybody. And I just would like them to take it down. I don't understand what their need is to keep it up on the website. And I would really like to know what the reasoning is to leave it there, because it's only hurting us, haunting my family. That's my request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Eastburn, 424 32nd Street. I'd like to thank council for unsealing and releasing the minutes from the 3 closed sessions that were included in the blanket motion earlier. And I'd like to thank Lisa for working with me to get those put together. Doing a little bit of research on these closed meeting minutes, I went back and found that in 2011, there was a similar release of documents made for all the closed meetings between 1974 and 2011. So those closed meeting minutes had not been released to the public for 37 years in some cases. I find it difficult to understand how council, because I don't believe anyone on this council was in office at the time that these 3 particular items were discussed, and how you can vote to either approve or not approve the release of these documents when you weren't present to know what was discussed in those meetings. I also did a little bit more research on more current releases of documents, and there have been a few over the years since 2011, but not a lot. And in my research, I couldn't find any that had been released since 2017. So we now have another 4 years or 5 years of meetings, and you all know how often we have these closed sessions. And I don't think there's anything that's really deep, dark secrets that are discussed in these meetings, but the public meeting laws say that you should produce the minutes from these so the public can see what goes on and provide some transparency in what you're doing. I would strongly encourage council to consider coming up with a policy within your guidelines, your procedures and rules that you follow, that periodically you release these documents. You don't wait 12 years. You don't wait 37 years in some cases to release these documents. It's going to be a huge amount of effort for Lisa and staff to sit down and go through all the documents from 2017 or whenever the last release was through today and make recommendations on what should be unsealed and what shouldn't be. It'd be a whole lot easier if you did this quarterly or once a year, once every 6 months, some amount of time, and people wouldn't be sitting there thinking, these guys are hiding something. You know, there was something that was discussed here that they don't want us to know about, so they're not going to release these documents. And I don't think that's the case. So please consider doing this on a regular basis. And I haven't seen these yet, so I don't know what's in them myself, but when I do, I'll probably have a few more requests for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Doran, 1205 West Leland Avenue, Springfield, Illinois.
What was the name again, please?
Pardon me?
The name again, please?
Mike Doran.
Mike Doran.
And yes, I left yesterday from Springfield to get here today. So, I represent U.S. Cellular, and this is kind of a prelim to what I know I have to go through all the processes of planning and special use permits. But the water tank that we're on behind the fire department and the streets department is failing, and it's not a light failure. It's the main column coming down, and we found that information out when we were trying to upgrade to the 5G. And there are a few other carriers on that water tank. And so what we are proposing, U.S. Cellular, is to build a monopole, construct a monopole right next to the water tank. The town has a little piece outside of there's a couple parcels there all in one, but it's a little piece outside. And so we are looking, there we go, I'm sorry. He's working on the photo simulations. What you'd see up here is where the picture was taken and then that's what what it would look like with what we're proposing. The antennas on top of the pole would be what we call a lampshade, so it would look decorative. I must say this is my second time down here. Love it. It's very pretty, and but we do need to come up with a solution, and the water tank solution or investing in that water tank is just a little too expensive for that. So this is the alternative. And this isn't a rare case. Mount Olive, we're doing the same thing. Their water tank is failing. I just completed one in Kinston, North Carolina. Their water tank failed, and that was a huge tank. And when I walked up, I couldn't believe it was failing, but it was. And so I just wanted to make you aware that this is what we're doing, and we'll be going through the process with Chad. And do you have any questions for me?
What do you mean the water tank's failing?
It's failing structurally.
Okay, like the whole thing's going to have to be taken down?
No, it's if we put on our equipment.
Yeah.
Someone else has already probably upgraded to their 5G. I'm not quite sure how many people are on there. I think there's 3 carriers. So when all the carriers start upgrading, and you're the last one in, the tank is it's going to fail. They're all starting to fail. And if it was just a corral failure, we would modify that and make it happen. But this is the center column. So we do have a TEP engineering. They're well respected in North Carolina. So they're the ones who do the structural analysis for us, for U.S. Cellular.
When you say it's failing, what's failing?
The main that main center
down the center.
The main center. When we put what we're putting on our new equipment,
Too heavy?
Yes.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
all right.
Yeah, no, it's not going to fall down or anything like that. No, no.
I get the feeling it's going to tip over.
Is it still going to function as a water tank?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's just that we need to be there. We need to service Sunset Beach. And so the
So
only way,
you'll be in discussions with Chad on this.
Absolutely.
And Mayor, if I can,
Go ahead.
the reason that you all are hearing this tonight is because he is requesting to put this on town property. Right now, the water tower is owned by Brunswick County. So he goes through Brunswick County currently to have his tower, or his antenna on the tower. Water tank. If he goes with a standalone, that one now be on town property. So I need you all to put this on another meeting if you want to entertain this and talk to Dustin about location for the Public Works area, and then with Chad to make sure that the UDO would support what he's trying to do.
Right.
So, but if you are not interested in entertaining it at all, then that's what you need to let him know tonight. Or if you will entertain it, then we just need to back up to the directives and add this to either the August or September agenda.
So is that the only option? To
yeah. Yes. I know we would prefer just to stay in the tank where we are, but we don't want to invest, or if it's the main column, 300,000 to, it's too much money. We might as well just go ahead and build one. And there's no really the water tank that we're on is designed around other towers that are around here that US Cellular owns or rents on. So it needs to be it needs to be pretty close to that area.
What's the pleasure of council in regards to this, putting on a future agenda to hear the rest after you talk to Chad and you get all that information and everything?
I think we need to put on a future agenda so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, in regards, do you have a certain date? Do you want to put it on the next one, or is that going to be too?
That might be a little
your
too
time
soon.
schedule? Just push it up to the September meeting.
Okay. And please populate the photo simulations and take a look at it. There's already a visual obstruction of visual. I don't say obstruction, but it's already there. There's already a visual. What am I trying to say?
Yeah, we've got.
Oh, okay, good.
So you're saying though that there are other cell phone carriers that are up there now?
Yes, sir. Yep.
They've got 5G.
They've probably already upgraded, which put us.
So they're capable of doing it, but you're not.
We're not, and there's a structural analysis that literally breaks it all down. These are engineers and they know what they're doing. So it's out of my pay grade, but they say it's failing, and US Cellular obviously couldn't move forward with the failing water tank. And we can have someone from the city look into it also.
Yeah, that's what I say. If you touch base with Chad and get all your stuff together, and you can come back and have a regular agenda item and present it to the council, and then we'll go from there.
And any additional information that you can provide
Yeah.
will be greatly appreciated.
All right. Does any member of council have anything else? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.